Hello. Can everyone hear me? Good morning. Guten Morgen. Schönen guten Morgen. We have a very short program here on political courage, which is not to say that this topic is not important. It's probably the most important topic for all of us to consider as we consider the other issues that are being discussed on the main stage. This session was scheduled before the organizers knew when President Zelensky would be available, so unfortunately we have a little bit of a conflict timing-wise, but I am very grateful that you all are able to make it here for this discussion with these distinguished gentlemen. I am Evelyn Farkas. I'm the executive director of the McCain Institute. Our mission is to take the legacy, be motivated by the legacy of the late Senator McCain and his family, to defend democracy and human rights and create character-driven leaders all over the world. We're located in Washington, D.C. We work on a nonpartisan or bipartisan basis, and we are very proud to be here as part of the MSC annual conference. I want to welcome our two distinguished guests to the stage. First, we have Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, a man of courage. Both of these gentlemen are men of political courage. He is probably known to all of you. He has been mayor of Kyiv since 2014. Before that, he was one of the courageous leaders that forged an interim government on the heels of the Maidan demonstrations, was instrumental to his country in maintaining stability during that very difficult time. He founded a party called UDAR, which is a nod to his background as a boxer. He holds multiple international titles. I can't read them all. But really what he is known for most was his association with people like Senator McCain because of his courage, because of his unflinching willingness to put service among self on behalf of the people of Kyiv and the Ukrainian people. So I welcome you, Mayor Klitschko.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joining him is one of America's top politicians, top statesmen, Congressman Mike Turner. He has been in the U.S. Congress since 2002. He's currently the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, which is a position of incredible responsibility with knowledge and input into the United States and our allies' greatest security threats and challenges. He has served in Congress since, I believe, 2002. He also was and perhaps still is a senior member of the House Armed Services Committee. And that is where our paths crossed. He has in his district a large Air Force base. Many of you may know that the base in Dayton because of the Dayton Peace Accords, which were brokered by the late Ambassador Richard Holbrooke, while the congressman was mayor of Dayton. And he was mayor of Dayton for 8 years before he became a congressman. I don't want to take up too much time, but what I would like to do, because this is after all, a session on political courage. And we know that that is standing up for what is right, regardless of what is popular. It is leadership where you do not compromise your values when you are confronted with difficult situations. And at all levels of society, we know whether we're talking about political leaders or even at a lower level, local leaders, we look for leaders of courage. Men and women who demonstrate political courage every day. They're essential to upholding democracy. Senator McCain, of course, embodied these values, whether it meant calling out authoritarians internationally or standing up and taking a difficult vote against his party leadership in the United States. He said, quote, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the capacity to act despite our fears." And with that in mind, I would like to ask us to take a moment of silence to recognize the deep political courage that we have seen from Alexei Navalny, from Vladimir Kara-Murza, from Ilya Yassin, many Russian dissidents who have given their lives, of course, as we recently learned, and are giving their lives in Russian prisons, and also for the Ukrainian people who, whether they're fighting in the battlefields or under attack in the city of Kyiv, are demonstrating also courage every day. So if you could just join me in a moment of silence, please. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention to this issue. Again, it is with heavy hearts that we talk about political courage because there's always a price to pay. It's not easy, that's the point. If I could ask just for some opening reflections on political courage, starting with the mayor and then with the congressman, and of course feel free to mention John McCain if you like.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the chance to take a part in this discussion. I have to explain a lot of things regarding political responsibility. I have not so long but not so short political career. It's actually my background is sport, and I was really surprised. You're talking right now about John McCain working a lot to support, protect human rights. And as sportsman, I was really surprised, and not a lot of people in sport and actually in the world know some very interesting story, because John McCain was huge boxing fan and was a couple of times in by fights, my brother and me, in the United States. Support not just me. He we call that Muhammad Ali law, where protection for every sportsman is very important. I received this information many years ago. I was really surprised because John McCain and is a great person. Thanks God, I have a chance to meet him many times in our hometown in Kiev, in Orange Revolution. I was many times in Washington visiting him, and we need John McCain so much, and he passed, but until today, I guess, if John McCain is still alive, we doesn't have problem right now with support of Ukraine from the side of Republicans. Sorry, I don't want to involve in inside Americans' politics, but from that depend the future, not just Ukraine, the future of democracy. And it's very important to take decisions, very important decisions, because right now the question of values. If Ukraine, I hope it's not happens, lose this war, the whole democratic world have huge damages. And that's why it's very important to support Ukraine, very important to support democracy. It's very important to support the will of people to build free democratic country, and it's very important for whole world, and that's why. I'm very surprised. You have also, before, as the self-government's background is, it's very important for every politician to have experience in different level. I personally was a member of parliament. Make a lot of things, but it's most thankful job to be the mayor, because you're not just promising, you implement the wishes from the people immediately, and people very appreciate for that. Because to be the member of parliament is everything almost virtual. Sorry, it's my vision. Political responsibility. I won't talking about the war. It's big drama right now in Ukraine, not just for Ukraine, it's big drama for whole Europe. And we actually never expect so huge challenges. And if we have time machine and send some one of us in 5 years ago, and everyone have to explain what happens in the world, definitely nobody trusts him. And definitely he sent him to psychological rehabilitation. But to be honest, today's hard reality killed people, civilians. It's not a war in Ukraine, it's genocide, it's terrorism, because in the war have clear rules: never touch civilians, never touch the children or women, old people. When you're in Ukraine, you can drive hours long east of Ukraine with empty villages, destroy the city, no people, and behind every empty windows, family somewhere, homeless, no jobs, no future. Millions of people. It's big drama. And please don't forget, it's biggest war after the Second World War in Europe. More than 1,000 miles, the front line. Every day died many, many people, soldiers. And it's huge task for everyone to stop this war. And I have a lot of story to explain, but we have not so much time for that. But one short point. From beginning the war, the self-government, the mayors, who have huge responsibility to take, we was responsible for civil defense, we was responsible for checkpoints, we was responsible to defend our cities, our villages, our communities, and it was not easy task. And the Russians know how big respect the people, communities have to mayor, because it's some member of community who everyone trusts. And from the beginning, the Russians starting to hunting the mayors. 37 mayors was kidnapped. One was killed. 5 until today disappeared. We don't know. They is somewhere in prison, maybe killed. And we do it from beginning. Was in beginning the war was everything not so good with good structure, and we was responsible for everything to support our communities, to help the people, and we make our function. It was very dangerous, and from evacuation to support the army, to make protection for everyone, and yes, of course, number one, the safety was and still question number one. Safety for every citizen. Until today, we're responsible for that and do it everything what is possible to save the people's lives.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is, of course, there's courage being demonstrated, as you said, every day, and it's a good reminder that being a mayor can be a courageous act in and of itself in certain contexts. Congressman, can you speak about political courage from the backdrop of course, America's system?
You know, it is interesting juxtaposition here. I'm a former mayor, a current chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and I'm sitting next to what embodies political courage. And I'm going to be able to give
the mayor one time and for forever, lifelong.
that is true. My staff can tell you that. That is absolutely the truth. But from the position that I sit, I can give you some definition of the mayor and his political courage, and really how that translates into what we need to be doing in our international focus of security here, and both in our support for Ukraine. Ellen, you asked us to do a story about McCain, so I will start with one. As Syria began to degrade, I was here at the Munich Security Conference with John McCain. We were talking, and he said, well, where are you going after this? And I said, I'm going to Turkey to go to some Syrian refugee camps. And he said, that's nice, I'm going to Syria. So little bit of a difference that shows you his political courage. Also, as Evelyn said, when I was mayor, the Dayton Peace Accords were negotiated in my town. And so I was engaged by USAID, and my town was, in doing exchanges with Sarajevo, Zagreb, other cities, for the purposes of looking at helping build democratic institutions. For example, we trained in my city the homicide detectives for Sarajevo. In that role, I got to know a lot of the mayors who were in Bosnia and in Croatia. And what I saw clearly was the difference that they were facing of building democratic institutions where mayors like myself are just trying to build our communities within well-established, secure, democratic regimes and countries and communities. Here, as you see with the mayor, he is on the front lines of really the battle between authoritarianism and democracy. And as I look to my position now in intelligence, I think a lot of us miss probably what I think was the most important event that occurred last year. And that was where President Xi and Putin stood next to each other. And it was what we would call an open mic or hot mic, where we got caught their casual conversation. And Xi says to Putin, we, meaning the two of them, are bringing about change that hasn't happened in 100 years. Well, we know what that 100 years is. That 100 years is World War I, World War II. It was the fight between authoritarianism and democracy won. And so what they're saying is they want to replay that battle between authoritarianism and democracy, and they believe that they can win. And that front line right now is where the mayor of Kyiv is. I was just in your town last week. Many of us can think in our mind's eye of cities around the world. When you think of Kyiv, one of the images you can't get out of your mind is the tanks lined up on the highways as they were trying to pour into his city. That's political courage. All mayors have to do, as you were talking about local government, we have to pick up the trash, we have to fix streets, we have to pave potholes. Not many mayors have to pave where bombs have landed. When we think of political courage and we think of local government, the mayor of, for example, Munich, he needs to be, or she needs to be a great mayor for Munich and perhaps even a great mayor for Germany. But right now, the mayor of Kyiv needs to be a great mayor for the world, because you are on the front lines of the battle between authoritarianism and democracy. And as we take up the issue of international security, that really has to be our focus. In both supporting Ukraine in that battle, because it is a battle for us, but also as we're seeing around the world, where China, Russia, Iran, North Korea are building a military might and are, through aggressiveness, endangering democracies, and we need to stand together.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Mayor, a question where political courage sort of underlies this question, because if you want to have political courage about the future of Ukraine, or if you want to have a vision for the future of Ukraine, you have to be, so political courage and the vision are interconnected. I'm saying this a little bit awkwardly, but in order to be motivated to demonstrate political courage, you have to have a vision for the future of Ukraine. Right now, the picture that people are painting of Ukraine is, somebody mentioned to me that in another meeting, someone said they're losing the war, which is ridiculous. We're in the middle of a war. How do you know whether Ukraine is winning or losing? And certainly in the maritime domain, Ukraine has made great strides. And in the maritime domain, you now have trade going out in and out of the Black Sea, not just in grains, but in metals and other commodities. So that's a win. Of course, on the ground, there is more or less a stalemate, and perhaps Avdiivka will fall. But can you talk to us a little bit about how we should envision the future for Ukraine and the current war, and use that to find some political courage to support Ukraine?
Thank you for your question. I don't want to think like so pessimistic as was question. First of all,
that's okay. We want you to be optimistic.
Be honest. 2 years ago, all experts in the world, give to us, to Ukraine, in a couple of days, maybe maximum a couple of weeks, to stay against one of the strongest army in the world, Russian army. Already 2 years, successfully we defend our homeland. It's not easy. One of the strongest and biggest army in the world. It's not easy way. Russia is have much more resources, human resources and military resources. That's why you help of our friends is very important. Life important for us, and that's why we're asking about if we have same values. Help us, please, because we're fighting, and everyone have to understand the reason of this senseless war. Because we Ukrainians want to be the part of European family, democratic world, and Putin tell, you never was independent, you always was part of Russian Empire. Exactly like Poland, exactly like Baltic countries, and that's why the reason of this war, he want to rebuild Soviet Empire. We don't want back to USSR. We see our future as part of European family, democratic family. It's everyone clearly have to understand the reason of this war.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask you also, Congressman, a related question? What vision do you think you can draw for your colleagues, specifically in the House of Representatives, to find political courage to support Ukraine the way we need to?
Right. You and I were having a part of this conversation beforehand, and I think it even relates to what we're doing here today. Individuals who serve in elected positions really cannot do it alone. It does take a public discourse that results in a political discourse that can result in political action. That's why it's so important that not only we have individuals that will, stand in the gap and stand for principles, we also need the dialogical communities, the Munich Security Conference, each of the organizations that you represent, to be part of the dialogue that help make the case and amplify the issues that the mayor was just articulating. This is one of those issues that I think goes to the heart of what do we stand for. If democracies don't stand together, authoritarian regimes will, and they will take down democratic institutions, democratic communities, one at a time, and that there will. This aggression from Russia, as they've gone into Ukraine, is not an issue of territory. It's an issue of ideology. It's an issue of political affiliation. One man, Putin, believing that Russia should be able to exert its will over a democratic elected country. And that certainly is the value, the very basic value that we should stand for in democracies. It's not just that those of us who live in secure democracies deserve democracy. The self-determination of people is at the heart of our expression of democracy. And that means everybody.
Yeah, that's very well put. I think John McCain would love that. Thank you. So we have 10 minutes left. I know many of you actually in the audience, I looked at the list of people who are attending, and there are people of political courage here. I don't want to call them all out, but one of them was a rapporteur on Syrian war crimes in the United Nations. I don't know if she's here, now working for Amnesty International. I know that many of you have firsthand experience, so if you want to either share your experience or ask these two gentlemen a great question, we welcome it, and somebody will be walking around with a microphone.
Hello, good morning. Christoph von Marschall, from the Tagesspiegel newspaper in Berlin. I would like you, Mr. Klitschko, to describe do you see any difference in the political courage of you and the president of your country? Or are you more or less in the same mood and understanding what political courage means? Do you have any differences between how you address the war and he addresses? But it's a question about how do you define his political courage, your political courage? Is that on the same page, or are there individual differences?
It's a little bit provocation in your question. The key for peace and freedom is unity. Unity all politicians inside the country, and also unity around Ukraine from our friends. The key is very, very important. I make very simple and understandable examples. Everything is from my background, sport background. Everything is pretty strong. But if things come together, it will be time strong. And that's why unity is the key. And that's why everyone responsible for a lot of things. What happens? the Zelensky have the mission of as president of Ukraine. It's very tough job right now to unite people, and it's very important don't make mistake in this way, because the mistakes can be dramatic for the country, and that's why everyone have to fighting for in his level. Actually, to do it everything what is possible to support the country. And to be honest, it's not my responsibility as mayor of Kyiv to support military forces, to help with the weapons, and the community spent a lot of time in our budget last year, just more than 7 billion hryvnia to support military forces, to buy equipment, helmets, bulletproof jackets, a lot of what they need, because can you imagine, it's 100,000 people from our community, civilians, with very peaceful jobs right now, take the weapons and uniform and fighting right now, defending our city, defending our homeland. And that's why it's we have to do it everything what we can to support Ukraine. And one more time, I will be never tired to tell 1,000 times thank you for everyone who support our refugees, who support Ukraine politically, who give financial aid, who send defensive, I want to say defensive weapon to Ukraine, because we defend our homeland. Ukraine was always peaceful country where live peaceful people. We never ever was aggressive to anyone. But right now we have with weapons to defend our homeland. And thank you for support, and please still support Ukraine, because it's life important for us, and without your support we can survive.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other questions from the audience? And if you could also state your name.
Yeah, hello. My name is Yanis Sarts. I'm director of NATO Strategic Communication Center of Excellence. By the way, also inaugurated by John McCain back in 2015. He was there. My question is basically, first of all, of course, we all admire political courage. But we see that at the moments of the great crises. But we have to contemplate sometimes that the crises have arrived because there was not enough political courage in a run-up to building to that situation. What would you two advise? What should change so that it doesn't necessarily need to have a crisis to see the courage come out of the politicians and people, but to see it in everyday processes, that political courage is doing the right thing instead of thinking about the political future would be prevailing? Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with you, Congressman Turner.
Right. One of the things that I think we need to do that we dismiss too quickly is actually listen to our adversaries and perhaps believe them. So many times we listen to their statements as rhetoric rather than as actually true risks. And obviously in what I do, I look at the risks of the future. And what I'm seeing right now around the world is our adversaries, authoritarian regimes, are in an unprecedented military buildup, while we are not. Sometimes you have to have the political courage to say, I'm going to build for what everyone can't currently see, but may prevent, as you just said, that conflict of the future. Ronald Reagan was right. Peace through strength. It really does work.
Yeah, that's a principle of deterrence. And thank you, Congressman, for being a public voice on those issues. Mr. Mayor, if you could just say a word or two on how you muster political courage before the crisis to prevent the crisis. Or you can pass and we can take another question.
Yes, of course, prevention is much more important, but everyone from us want to be some kind of Nostradamus and know what we expect tomorrow. Yes, of course, everyone have a vision and predicts what can happen, but you never ever have 100% prediction. But anyway, it's very important. We have to learn from our mistakes. For example, it's a lot of people in the world talk about possible war and invasion, Russians against Ukraine, but until today we don't believe it can happen. If we know exactly, we build totally different strategy and prepare much better for this. But I told, if you send someone in 5 years ago and someone will be explain what happens today, they definitely send him to psychological rehabilitation, because nobody can predict 100% what happens. But it's very important to be prepared and calculate many scenarios, also worst case scenarios.
Yeah, and I think if you'll allow me the moderator's prerogative in this context, I did have some experience with this, having some knowledge, some specific expert knowledge about Russia's intentions coming out of the Obama administration, and I realized that the American public wasn't aware, they didn't understand. So I actually publicly put out what I believed were Vladimir Putin's intentions vis-a-vis the United States, our elections then in 2016, and the vision that Vladimir Putin had. And at the time, the risk was, of course, that people would think that I and others like me who were saying the same thing were crazy. And of course, the attacks from the adversaries. So I think for all of us, the thing to reflect upon is, what is that information that you hold? What is that knowledge that you have that you can share that even though it's difficult for you to share it or to take action based on that knowledge, you can actually change the world to make it better, even in a small way or perhaps in a larger way. I think each of us has the capacity to exhibit political courage, and it's what you do when you have that moment, when you have that information, when you have that opportunity to actually change lives, to change the course of history. So I think it just requires a deep consciousness every day of what you are learning and seeing, and the ability to educate and bring people along with you, because if you're going to be a political leader, you need to educate people so they follow you. So with that, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but I thank you all for coming, especially when there's so many exciting things happening on the main stage. Please keep our Russian dissidents and the people of Ukraine in your hearts. Slava Ukraina, Ukraine will prevail. Ukraine has already won the strategic war. It just needs to win the military war. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. If you allow,
Yes.
just one small message to our partners. One short message. I talk a lot with a lot of politicians. I remember exactly 2 years ago, here in Munich Security Conference, we have long discussion with Minister of Defense of Germany regarding support of Ukraine. Today we can smiling about that, about 5,000 helmets to Ukraine. It's actually, we happy Germany wake up, and we have much more support from Germany. Thank you 1,000 times. Thank you very much for everyone who support Ukraine. But my message to everyone in the world: this war already touched million people in Ukraine. It's million people around in Europe. It's very important today support Ukraine and do everything to stop this senseless war. It will be biggest mistake to think Ukraine far away from you, it doesn't touch you personally, is biggest mistake. If we're talking about prediction and also calculate with worst case scenario. One small example. One of the largest nuclear stations in Europe, in Zaporozhye and Energodar, stay in front line. Couple of months was in the fire. If explosion will be there, it can be much times bigger tragedy than Chernobyl catastrophe. In this worst case scenario, this war can touch everyone in our planet, and that's why it's very important to be proactive. You do it everything what you can to support Ukraine, and do it everything to stop this senseless war what starting Russia. And that's why, one more time, thank you for everyone for your courage and to support our homeland. And the biggest wish for everyone, we hope in this year the peace coming back to our homeland. Thank you.